In this video, I would like to show you how to make bar graphs using Excel. So I'm in the Excel program. You have Excel through Unity. If you go into your email, if you look in the top left side, you see the grid of little boxes. If you click on that, you will see Microsoft Excel in there, so you have access to it through that, and you can download it from there. I've made up some data here. I've included the titles that we had in our instructions for the assignment for week 3, and I've just made up some numbers. So these are not the same numbers that are in that data set. Now remember, what it's asking us to do is to calculate the frequency and the percentage, and then to graph the percentages. We've got a certain behavior that was performed when we gave it enrichment option 1. Where there's a 0 there, the animal did not engage in that behavior. Where there's a 1, they did engage in that behavior. So let's say we're trying to track how often they perform this particular type of behavior. Down here, I've added a few rows here, total. So to get my total, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to click this little FX button. That stands for function. The first one that pops up here is sum. So I'm going to click on sum and say OK. And what it's going to do is it's going to add these numbers. Now, if it's not automatically picking the right numbers, you can still do that by just grabbing the ones you want it to add and highlighting them. There they are there, and then say OK. So it added all the numbers in here. So there were 9 times where we had a 1, and then the other times we had zeros. Now, the way Excel works is if you give it a formula once, it can duplicate that formula. I'm going to grab that little square in the bottom right corner of this cell. I'm just going to drag it over here. So what it did here is exactly the same thing that I asked it to do here, but it did it for this column. So there were 16 ones in this column, 9 ones in the first column. Now to convert this to a frequency, there were a total of 24 data points there. So all I have to do is I'm going to put in an equal sign, and I'm going to grab this 9 here. So I'm going to come up here and grab that cell, and then I'm going to do a slash, which stands for divide 24. So the frequency is 0.375. Again, I don't have to do that formula. I can copy it. So I'm going to drag this corner over, and I'll do the same thing over here. One thing I can do here is also round this if I want to. So if I come in here and I do format cells, and I go to number, and I can say I only want 3 decimal places, and then it'll match the other decimal places. Now to get my percentage, all I have to do is take my frequency and multiply it by 100. I'm going to put an equal sign. I'm going to grab this number by clicking on it. I'm going to use the asterisk, which is a multiplication in Excel, and then times 100. So I'm taking 0.375, multiplying it by 100, so it's 37.5%. And then again, grab that corner, copy it over. Here I will also round this one. So I'm going to do format cells, number, and I'm going to do 1 decimal place on this one. So those are my 2 percentages. Now what I'm going to do to plot these is something a little weird because of just of the way that Excel works. You just have to play with it a little bit to get what you want. I'm going to copy these 2 titles. I'm going to bring them over here. I'm going to copy these 2 numbers, which are my percentages that I want to plot. I'm going to put them over here. Now it came up with value because it's not understanding the equation since I moved it. But what I can do is here in this little drop down window, I can say I want to paste the values and the formatting. So that gives me what I had down here. This is really what I want to plot here. I'm going to highlight those 2, and I'm going to come up here to insert and select a bar graph. And notice by putting the titles up here, I also have my titles down below. I'm also going to add my label for my y-axis. So I can come over here to add chart element, add axis title, primary vertical, and this will be % of time engaging in behavior. So this is enrichment option 1, and of course that was also behavior 1. So if I wanted to, I could include that as well. And then I can put a chart title on it. So % of time engaged in behaviors with 2 enrichment options. Now, a lot of times in publications, you don't see a title at the top, but I believe the instructions told you to put one there, so I'm including that. If you look at most graphs that are in published journals, you won't see a title there. You'll actually see a figure caption below that describes what's going on. You also typically, when you look at these in publications, won't see the grid lines. So if you want to get rid of those grid lines, if you highlight them as I've shown here and then just hit backspace, they'll go away. That is how you would make a graph that is looking at the percentage of engagement in these behaviors based on the two different enrichment types. Now, when you get ready to put this into your paper, one of the best ways to do this is if you click in here, you'll see that it highlights all the way around. I could do a Control C. I can open Word. If I bring my Word document over here, let's say I have my results section, I can just Control V and my graph is right in there. And you can move some of these things around too, so I don't really like the way that looks. I could fix that over here and pull this up a little bit to make it so it's not hanging down quite so far. So you don't want to separate them and hand in your graphs in one document and your writing in another. Just copy and paste your graph that you produced in Excel or whatever program you decide to use over into your Word document. If you have any questions about how to do any of this, please let me know.